Willow Creek, Georgia, woke to the soft hum of late summer, its main street bathed in golden light filtering through ancient oak trees. The air carried the scent of dew-soaked grass and the faint sweetness of honeysuckle, mingling with the savory aroma of cornbread and bacon drifting from Mama June's diner. The diner, a modest brick building with faded red awnings, stood as the heart of the town, its windows fogged with the warmth of morning chatter. Inside, ceiling fans spun lazily, stirring the smells of coffee and fried eggs, while locals filled the booths, their laughter and murmurs weaving a familiar rhythm. At the center of this bustle was Tasha Williams, a 28-year-old waitress whose quick steps and warm smile made her a fixture in Willow Creek. Her braided hair swung gently as she balanced trays of steaming plates, her apron smudged with flour from helping in the kitchen. Tasha's accent, a rich blend of southern drawl and the lilting cadence of her Gullah heritage, carried the weight of her family's history, tales of low-country marshes, spirituals sung under starlit skies, and resilience passed down from her grandmother. This morning, however, that accent became a lightning rod. A stranger sat in a corner booth, his crisp navy suit and polished shoes stark against the diner's worn wooden tables and checkered curtains. Richard Harlan, a CEO from Atlanta, was scouting locations for his upscale restaurant chain, his eyes scanning the room with a calculating glint. His tie, knotted too tightly for the humid Georgia air, seemed to choke his patience as Tasha approached, her notepad ready, her smile open and genuine. As she greeted him, her voice danced with the melody of her heritage, warm and inviting, like a song half-remembered. But Harlan's face contorted, a flash of disdain crossing his sharp features. He cut her off mid-sentence, his voice loud enough to slice through the diner's hum. He mocked her accent, calling it unprofessional and muddled, suggesting she fix it if she wanted to amount to anything. His words hung in the air, sharp and cold, silencing the clatter of forks and the soft buzz of conversation. The diner froze, as if the air itself had thickened. Tasha stood rooted, her cheeks burning, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. Customers glanced at each other, some averting their eyes in embarrassment, others narrowing them in quiet anger. Her co-workers, LaShonda, the fiery line cook with a laugh that could light up a room, and Jamal, her teenage brother who bussed tables after school, exchanged tense looks but stayed silent, the weight of Harlan's authority pressing down on them. The man's suit, his confident posture, his title as a big city CEO made the room feel small, as if Willow Creek itself were being judged. Tasha excused herself, her steps quick but unsteady, and slipped through the swinging kitchen door. Inside, the smell of sizzling onions and grease enveloped her, grounding her as she leaned against the counter, pressing her hands to her face to steady her breathing. Harlan's words weren't just a personal attack, they were a dagger aimed at her identity, her roots, the very sound of her voice that carried her grandmother's stories and her mother's strength. Tasha had faced judgment before. Growing up in Willow Creek, she'd heard whispers about her family's strange, Gullah traditions, felt the sting of sidelong glances when she spoke at school or town meetings. Her mother, a single parent who worked double shifts at the diner and a nearby factory, had taught her to hold her head high, to let her voice ring clear despite the doubts of others. Tasha took a deep breath, the kitchen's warmth wrapping around her like a hug, and felt a spark ignite within her. She wouldn't let Harlan's words define her. She'd fight back, not with anger, but with something deeper, something that would prove her worth and the worth of everyone like her. Back in the dining room, the tension lingered like a storm cloud. Harlan sipped his coffee, his expression smug, oblivious to the ripple he'd caused. Tasha returned to her tables, her smile restored but sharper, her eyes burning with purpose. She moved with the same grace, pouring coffee, clearing plates, but her mind was elsewhere. She saw the faces of her neighbors, farmers who'd known her since she was a child, teachers who'd cheered her on, kids who called her Miss Tasha, and felt a surge of possibility. This wasn't just about her. It was about every person in Willow Creek who'd ever been made to feel small, whose voice had been dismissed or mocked. She wanted them to stand tall, to claim their place. By the end of her shift, Tasha's idea had taken shape. She stayed late, sitting at the counter with a notepad, sketching out a plan for a community event called Voices of Willow Creek. It would be a night of storytelling, music, and food, a celebration of the town's diverse voices, its accents, its histories, its heart. She shared the idea with LaShonda over a plate of leftover biscuits, her friends' eyes lighting up with excitement. Others were hesitant, worried about drawing attention or stirring conflict, but Tasha's quiet conviction pulled them in. She spoke of her grandmother's Gullah tales, of the farmers' drawls, of the Spanish spoken by the Martinez family down the street. This event would show the world who Willow Creek was. As the diner's lights dimmed, Tasha felt a flicker of hope. Harlan's words had cut deep, but they'd also sparked a fire, one she'd fan into something unstoppable. The next week transformed Tasha's small apartment into a war room of creativity and determination. Her coffee table was buried under notebooks, flyers, and half-empty mugs, the air thick with the scent of microwave popcorn and ink. After long shifts at the diner, she spent her evenings planning Voices of Willow Creek, her pen moving as fast as her thoughts. She envisioned a night where every accent, every story, would shine, her grandmother's gullah spirituals alongside the twang of old farmers, the rapid Spanish of the Martinez family, the shy voices of kids reading their poems. The event would be held at the community center, a weathered building by the creek, its walls lined with photos of past festivals, its wooden floors creaking with history. Tasha's vision wasn't without obstacles. At a planning meeting in the diner's back room, the air heavy with the smell of fried chicken and coffee, doubts surfaced. Mr. Jenkins, a retired mechanic with a voice like gravel, leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed. He worried the event would stir up trouble, exposing the town's fault lines, racial divides, economic struggles, generational gaps. He'd seen Willow Creek weather storms, from mill closures to hurricanes, but he feared a public celebration of differences might fracture what little unity they had. LaShonda, her hands on her hips, pushed back, her voice sharp with conviction. She argued that hiding their differences had only deepened the divides, that embracing them could heal. Tasha listened, her heart heavy but steady, and spoke of unity, of showing the world that Willow Creek's strength lay in its people, not in silencing them. Her accent, the one Harlan had mocked, filled the room, warm and unapologetic, and slowly, the skeptics began to nod. Logistics posed another hurdle. The community center needed tables, chairs, lights, and a sound system, none of which Tasha could afford on her waitress wages. She rallied volunteers, teenagers to hang flyers around town, church ladies to cook vats of mac and cheese, musicians to play for free. The town buzzed with a mix of excitement and skepticism. Mrs. Carter, the librarian with a soft spot for history, saw the event as a chance to mend old wounds, her eyes bright as she offered to dig up old photos for a display. Others, like the barbershop regulars, whispered that Tasha was in over her head, especially with Harlan still lurking. The CEO had returned to the diner twice, his notepad filled with observations, his questions to Mama June about modernizing the place dripping with condescension. Tasha overheard him one morning, his voice low as he suggested the diner's lot would be perfect for his sleek new restaurant. The words hit like a punch, threatening the heart of her community. Tasha leaned on her allies to keep going. LaShonda, whose fiery spirit matched her culinary flair, spent late nights helping Tasha design flyers, her laughter cutting through the stress. Jamal, Tasha's brother, took charge of social media, creating a hashtag Voices of Willow Creek, and posting videos of townsfolk sharing snippets of their lives, Mr. Jenkins fixing his first car, Mrs. Martinez rolling tamales with her grandmother's recipe. The post spread, drawing likes and shares from neighboring towns, even catching the eye of a local news station. Tasha felt the weight of expectation but also a surge of pride. This was her town, her people, and they were ready to stand together. Harlan's shadow grew longer as the event neared. He met with local officials, pitching his restaurant as progress, implying Willow Creek's backward ways needed his touch. Tasha felt the pressure, her nights sleepless as she balanced shifts, planning, and the fear of losing the diner. But she also felt the town's pulse quickening. At the farmers' market, vendors offered to donate food. At church, the choir agreed to perform. Even Mr. Jenkins, once the loudest skeptic, started spreading the word, his gruff voice carrying a new note of respect. Tasha stood by the creek one evening, the water's gentle rush calming her frayed nerves. She thought of her grandmother, whose stories had taught her to speak proudly, and felt ready. The event was days away, and Willow Creek was waking up. The community center glowed under strings of fairy lights, their soft twinkle reflecting off the creek outside. The air was thick with the smells of fried chicken, collard greens, and cornbread, tables groaning under dishes brought by every family in town. The room buzzed with life, farmers in worn boots, teachers in sundresses, kids weaving through the crowd with paper plates piled high. The wooden stage, draped in a red curtain, held a single microphone, its stand wobbling slightly under the weight of anticipation. Outside, cicadas sang, their hum blending with the creek's whisper, creating a soundtrack as old as Willow Creek itself. Tasha moved through the crowd, her apron swapped for a blue dress that hugged her frame, her braided hair catching the light. Her heart raced, but her smile was steady, a beacon for the nervous energy around her. The night began with music, a local band strumming blues and gospel, the notes pulling people to their feet. Tasha took the stage, her hands trembling but her presence commanding. She welcomed the crowd, her accent ringing clear, no longer a source of shame but a badge of pride. She spoke of Willow Creek's heart, its people, their stories, their resilience. The room listened, rapt, as she introduced the first speaker, an elder whose voice, thick with the drawl of generations, told of the town's founding, of families carving homes from red clay. Mrs. Martinez followed, her Spanish weaving through English as she shared her family's journey from Mexico to Georgia, her hands gesturing as if shaping the story in the air. Each speaker added a thread to the tapestry: farmers, teachers, teenagers, their accents as varied as the dishes on the tables. Tasha noticed Harlan in the back, his suit a stark contrast to the crowd's casual warmth. He'd come uninvited, likely to gauge the town's reaction to his plans, his notepad tucked under his arm. His presence sent a jolt through her, but she pushed it aside. This night wasn't about him, it was about her people. The stories continued, a shy teenager reading a poem about the creek, her voice shaking but growing stronger with each line, a farmer joking about his first tractor, his twang drawing laughter. The room pulsed with connection, tears mixing with smiles, as Mrs. Carter dabbed her eyes and Mr. Jenkins nodded, his skepticism replaced by pride. As the night reached its peak, Tasha felt a pull to speak again. She hadn't planned it, but the moment demanded her voice. She stepped to the microphone, the crowd quieting, and shared her story, not just Harlan's insult, but the weight of growing up different, of loving a town that didn't always love her back. She spoke of her grandmother's gullah tales, of the marshlands that shaped her family, of the strength in every voice in the room. Her words, raw and unpolished, hit like a wave, drawing applause, cheers, and tears. Harlan shifted, his face unreadable, but Tasha didn't care. This was her triumph, their triumph. The night closed with a collective song, an old spiritual Tasha's grandmother had taught her. Voices young and old joined in, some off-key, some perfect, but all together, the sound carrying across the creek into the night. Tasha stood back, watching her town shine, and felt a weight lift. They'd shown the world who they were, diverse, proud, unbreakable. Morning broke over Willow Creek, the air crisp with the promise of fall. The diner was abuzz, locals recounting the Voices event over coffee, their voices overlapping with excitement. Social media lit up with photos and videos, #Voices of Willow Creek trending across Georgia. Tasha woke to her phone buzzing with messages, thanks from neighbors, praise from strangers, even a request from a local reporter for an interview. But the glow faded when she arrived at work. Mama June pulled her into the office, her face etched with worry. Harlan had made an offer to buy the diner's lot, his vision of a sleek, modern restaurant threatening to erase the heart of Willow Creek. He'd framed it as progress, implying the town's backward ways couldn't survive without his money. June was torn, her husband's medical bills were mounting, and the offer was tempting. Tasha's stomach twisted. The diner was more than a job, it was where she'd celebrated her 16th birthday, where she'd cried with LaShonda after her mother's funeral, where the town came together after storms. Losing it would tear a hole in Willow Creek's soul. Tasha promised June she'd find a way to save it, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her. She called an emergency meeting at the community center, the room filling with familiar faces now marked with concern. She laid out the threat, her words clear and urgent. Ideas poured in, fundraisers, petitions, a boycott of Harlan's chain. LaShonda suggested a social media campaign, leveraging the Voices event's momentum. Jamal proposed a crowdfunding page to buy the diner themselves, his eyes bright with possibility. Even Mr. Jenkins, once the loudest doubter, offered to rally the farmers' co-op, his gruff voice carrying new resolve. Tasha threw herself into the fight. She and Jamal built the crowdfunding page, filling it with stories of the diner's history, first dates over milkshakes, late-night talks over pie, the time it stayed open during a hurricane to feed stranded families. The campaign spread, donations trickling in from across the state, fueled by the viral energy of the Voices event. Tasha organized a town hall, where residents spoke to the county council, their accents, Gullah, Southern, Spanish, filling the room as they demanded the diner stay. Harlan attended, his confidence wavering as he saw the town's unity. The weeks were grueling. Harlan met with officials, painting his restaurant as the future, but Tasha's campaign was relentless. She spoke at churches, schools, the farmers' market, her accent no longer a wound but a weapon. The town rallied, kids sold lemonade for the cause, elders shared the campaign on their phones, strangers sent checks with notes of support. When the crowdfunding hit its goal, the diner erupted in cheers, June hugging Tasha with tears in her eyes. Harlan's deal collapsed, his vision no match for a community's heart. Fall settled over Willow Creek, the oaks turning gold, the air sharp with the scent of wood smoke. Mama June's diner thrived, its lot secured, its walls freshly painted, new tables gleaming under the old fans. The crowdfunding money funded a small stage for weekly open mics, a nod to the Voices event that had changed the town. Tasha moved through the morning rush, her smile wide, her accent unchanged. Customers greeted her like family, sharing stories of the campaign, of how it had reshaped them. Willow Creek felt different, closer, stronger, prouder. Harlan was gone, his plans abandoned, his reputation bruised by the town's stand. Tasha heard he'd moved to another city, but she didn't care. Her fight had never been about him, it was about proving every voice mattered. She saw it in Mr. Jenkins' new warmth toward Mrs. Martinez, in the kids who mimicked her accent playfully, in the monthly storytelling nights at the community center, each one packed. One evening, as Tasha locked the diner, she stood outside, the air cool, the stars bright. The creek's rush filled her ears, and she thought of her grandmother, of the stories that had shaped her. She'd turned shame into pride, a wound into a bridge. Willow Creek wasn't perfect, but it was hers, and it was stronger for it. Tasha's story started a movement. Every town has voices waiting to be heard. Find them, lift them up, stand together. Speak proudly, build a community where no story is silenced. Unity is our strength, every voice, no matter how different, builds the heart of a community.